Hello, it's Chris, and this is going to be, I don't really know really, I've got a lot of different, I've not really done any videos for a while. I've just been going through a time of, intense work for one, and I work as a teacher, so I've been too busy to ruminate about philosophy and ideas and various other things I chat about on this channel for quite a while, but I thought, as I'm on holiday now, I may as well try and put some thoughts down as to just multiple areas I've been looking into and the media I've been consuming of late, and try and put some interesting thoughts down about those varying subjects, which is very vague, but as I said, I don't really exactly know what I'm going to go into with this video. I've got so many different strands of thought going around in my head that I'm finding it quite hard to tie all of them together. But nevertheless, let me just talk about the different themes that are running around in my head at present and try and tie a few of them together. So in terms of reading, I'm reading a book called The Philosophy of Redemption at the minute by a German philosopher known as who was called Phillip Mainlander, who seemed to be getting a bit more attention of late, and I will be doing a full overview of that book once I've finished it. At the present, I'm about 100 pages in, so I've got about 100 more to go. But I want to try and draw on that, maybe in some respects, draw on Mainlander's life. I think put that through some sort of contemporary lens, I guess. Now, as I said, this will be quite vague at first. I don't know exactly, you may as well just consider this a bunch of me thinking aloud. All that said, it's not like fully formed ideas or beliefs, just a bunch of thoughts, really. So, I've been obviously, it's impossible to escape the culture wars at present, which I'm actually getting increasingly frustrated with. Maybe I need to try and filter my YouTube a lot more, and I do obsessively consume YouTube, I've got to admit. As I've got a lot of free time at the minute, most of my free time revolves around playing games, building some dev stuff, games, Unreal Engine, trying to build worlds. Quite a bit of reading. I'm increasingly finding it harder to focus with that. I think we're all suffering from a form of attention deficit in some respects, and I definitely am encountering that a lot more. It's an attachment to technology, right? Which I think we've all been struggling with that in some respect. Not everybody, obviously. It's a bit of a generalisation, but there is definitely our relationship to our devices, with our phones. It's just everywhere now. It's ubiquitous. Computing is ubiquitous. Our actual media is just everywhere. Go on any train and you'll obviously understand this. People aren't reading books or looking out the window having thoughts anymore. They're just doing this, scrolling through a feed of information that never really stops, and which of course now is increasingly polluted by vast swathes of just blatantly false information or AI generated misinformation, or just fake news, basically, in the sense that it's just literally bullshit that's been generated by generative AI for either clickbait or, usually for clickbait, really, to generate clicks to then either drive ad revenues or whatever. Anyway, I think, in some respects, I'm trying to figure out how to counter that in my own life, so that I can return back to enjoying longer form content, right? I mean, the vlogs I do on this channel are usually longer form. I usually have some degree of editing, but I don't tend to filter out much of what I'm saying. I don't really adopt my language, or just talk how I talk. Try and be authentic as much as I can. And yeah, that can lead to a tendency to ramble on a bit, but in terms of media consumption, or just consuming ideas in general, I'm trying to make a concerted effort a lot more now to read these heady works of philosophy, like Mainlander, for example, who's a philosopher I've been interested in for quite a while, and I've read some of the work online. It's only recently been translated into English, actually just this year. There's the first printed edition in English, which I do recommend you buy. I'll put the thumbnail on once I've edited this video. But I think probably something's starting to get lost a bit in our culture as a result of, social media, TikTok, the shortening of people's attention spans, is to really grasp any idea and to understand if you agree with the premises or the conception of the idea or the conclusions that he comes to. Obviously, it's important to read the source material. Now, an example I saw, just because this is fresh in my mind from watching a video clip recently, somebody was talking about, like a lot of Marxists might not really be that familiar with Marx. They might not have read that much of Marx. They might not have read Capital, for example, or the Communist Manifesto, or maybe they have a surface level reading of Marx. And they were also saying, this person was also saying, this little clip that I saw, that Marx in a lot of ways wasn't consistent with his own ideals, and she was arguing that the character of Marx as a personality devalued his ideas. Now, it'd be interesting to explore some of the threads I'm trying to tie together here through the lens of Marx, because, well, this is actually a copy of a Marxist volume which I bought when I was a student. In fact, I was studying computer science, but I had an interest in philosophy and politics as well, even during my time at university, because I studied computer science, but I almost did study philosophy at university. I was accepted on a course to study philosophy, so it is a interest that I've always maintained, same as with politics as well. Though politics, of course, now has become, it's the domain of a lot of scoundrels at present, for sure. Anyway, so I've read some Marx. I know I wouldn't call myself a Marxist, but I understand many of the ideas within it. Like, who's read all of it, really? Unless somebody's a really serious scholar, though, I wouldn't claim that. But, I've read the Communist Manifesto, read some Engels, read parts of Das Kapital, though I've never read all of it. But I wouldn't really call myself a Marxist in the truest sense of the word, because I don't agree necessarily with all the... I think, in some respects, Marx became almost became an icon, right? It's a very, very, very good critique. Capitalism, probably one of the greatest critiques of capitalism in terms of its depth and the depth of the analysis that Marx goes into. Switching back to like how short form content and sound bites has become the prevailing culture of the day, it would be seen as, like, if you were to present, let's say if someone came up with a thorough decimation, if you will, of capitalism in this time, and it went to the same level of depth, it would probably have to be TikTokified for people to even consider it, right? It's like the medium of the message. There's a message and all that, I suppose. We've become very much a culture of short, snappy, easy to understand ideas, rather than quite deep, thoughtful, difficult ideas, right? And this has affected everybody. I think, like I said, I think it's affected myself. I feel my attention span's just gone down. Sometimes I'll be on Instagram just scrolling through and laughing at various things, or having just in ways like facile, meaningless responses. And this, obviously, all these systems have got powered by hugely powerful algorithms driven by huge data they know everything about us, right? They know what you enjoy, they know what makes you angry. And I'm not saying there's any consciousness driving that, obviously, it's just pure pattern recognition, right? In terms of like the actual machine learning or algorithms that are driving all of this, which is an unprecedented thing, really. We don't know what effect it's going to have fully. You know, like the algorithm, I'm sure knows, well, not knows in the truest sense, but not even understands, definitely not, but is able to recognise patterns of behaviour in myself and the way that I interact with the online world that I wouldn't even understand in myself. Everything from what videos I might watch when I go from one link to another, what the pattern of behaviour behind that. And you've got all the demographic data that gets collated with certain videos, and then that's used obviously to feed me more of the same. One of the frustrating things I find on YouTube is that I often end up, say I'll watch one video. A lot of the stuff I actually consume on YouTube I disagree with vehemently. But my whole idea with that is that basically, if I like to understand the other side, basically, of an argument. So my idea is that if I have a belief, or if I have a principle, then I have to keep up to date with people who believe the opposite. And I think that helps you mature as a thinker, though I sound pretentious saying this, but as an intellectual. If you are able to understand someone who has a counter view, why their view doesn't fit, then you are able to genuinely, novelly counter their arguments, right? You have to know your enemy in some respects. So, like, I consume a lot of media on YouTube that's very strongly anti-trans, for example, or will be, because there's a big culture war going on at the minute, obviously, and trans people, unfortunately, are right at the centre of that storm. It's a phenomenon that's taken hold in America, very much in the UK as well, and obviously that's a hugely complicated issue, right? We can try and you can take one extreme side or the other, but there's still lots of nuance, for example. And I've found, even with my own position, I believe that obviously somebody should be able to transition socially and have all the surgeries. If that's something that they feel inside themselves, then I think it's basically a human right that they should be able to do that. But I'm not an extremist as well, because I find that I have my doubts when it comes to hormone blockers, for example. I really do have quite profound doubts about that. Now, I've always been relatively progressive, and I do believe that in queer rights and everything else, but I also do think that some of what has been going on does make me pause a bit, right? But then also on the other side, I have to recognise as well that trans people are under attack in the UK in a lot of respects. It's never been easy having that identity, right? And it's existed for millennia, probably, in one form or the other. We've always had people who've skirted the divide or not really existed within it, right? Just never had the modern language that we have for it now. But it's become a very partisan issue where even trying to discuss those things is seen as a risk to either oneself or just that you risk getting piled on, basically. Now, I don't know where I'm going with this, but again, this is going to be rather modelled. I just wanted to put together a bunch of strands of thought, like I said. And I think one of the things with identity politics is that because people feel so, identity is such a personal thing, obviously, it's very it's something that people feel intrinsically in their bones, in their bodies, in their minds, especially if they've been historically, they've had people who hate them purely because of their identity, whether that be you're black, whether that be you're Jewish, whether that be you're gay, whether that be you're a lesbian, whether that be you're trans, whatever. And progressive politics is obviously the clues in the title. Progressive is supposed to mean moving towards something or shifting the boundaries. And there's always been a back and forth, even historically, if you look at cycles of the world of opposing systems of belief, whether the regressive sort of like conservative element wants to keep the traditions alive, or the more progressive strain of politics, which will be constantly pushing forward. But like I said, this is going to be modelled, so please bear with me. But yeah, we sort of, maybe in some respects, we live in such a dense information space now that there is a channel for every mad idea now, even if it's just really absurd. So, taking the trans thing, just because it's so current in the melee of the culture wars, so you get everything from, you get like people who are genuinely trans, like a trans woman being, but then people will look at like really extreme outliers, like, I don't know, someone who thinks they're a wolf, and they'll make compare those like the same thing. Where there used to actually be there's a word for somebody who thinks they're a wolf. It's like a mental health condition, really. So lichen, I don't know, I think it's lycanthropy or something. It's an actual medical thing. Probably not from a while ago, but yeah, these things are conflated when they're really just very different issues. Now, I'm going to go away from the trans thing. It's just because it's so very present in the culture wars at present. Before I deal with that, I don't really have much more to contribute to it. But yeah, I mean, for myself, I'm just a white guy, so obviously that can be used in the modern discourse to say, well, what do you have to contribute to anything? How can you know what it's like to be a member of a oppressed group, or yada yada yada? Which, yeah, I get that on one level, but also, again, the hyperfixation, I think, on identity is stripping away the value of somebody's argument before they've even started putting anything forward, right? Which just seems reductive. I have been seeing a lot of messaging in media to where it seems there is a counter movement towards the so-called woke culture in the culture wars, which will probably bear out, to be fairly honest. And we've just had the repeal of hormone blockers in the UK, which, to be honest, I've got mixed feelings about. I probably do basically agree with it at the minute, but I don't know all the details. But obviously in America you've got Trump coming to power, which is going to have a profound effect on all of that, and will probably stir up a lot of division in the US. They did vote for it, obviously, and it's been an interesting election in terms of the American one, because it didn't follow the lines that the progressive, the broad coalition of the progressive left in America thought it would. You had a much more Hispanic, black voters, men as well, which is sort of expected, but yeah, you had many more black and Hispanic voters voting for Trump than expected, which was basically an unexpected phenomenon. The assumption was that well, they'll vote for Kamala Harris, and obviously that didn't pan out. Now, obviously this is quite a muddled video. I've gone on for 20 minutes. I want to try and tie this threads together. Thinking of Phillip Mainlander, because I've just been reading him recently. He was interesting in the sense that he was incredibly pessimistic, nihilistic philosopher. I'm reading his work at the minute, so I've got through analytics and physics of his book, Philosophy of Redemption. I've not yet got onto the politics part, but Mainlander was in fact a social democrat. So his basic view, his philosophical system, is that we have the will to death. So we're only here to die, basically. We don't have any specific meaning in our lives. The universe started off with a unity, God, that's split into a multiplicity, and that's what created the universe. We are just a bit of fragments of a God that's killed itself, basically. So it's quite a grim view of creation and metaphysics of the universe, basically. It's a very interesting book so far. He goes into physics, he goes into gases, different states. He relates a lot of that, again, back to this principle he has of the splintering of God into these multiple parts, which in contemporary understanding of the universe would be the Big Bang, right? But he was also a social democrat, and he was politically involved. I'm really interested to see how his politics fed into his philosophy, which you could argue is incredibly pessimistic, right, and a bit grim. But even he, who was, quite a nihilistic, well, not even nihilistic, 'cause not in the sense of being destructive, but the sense that there is really a void in the centre of meaning of that humanity has to fill with something, and we all fill that with something different. We live in an age, obviously, where we're all dopamine up to the eyeballs. If we're not watching pornography, we're playing video games, or we're just distracting ourselves with entertainment. We're having probably less experience just of experience of the heights, if you will. So, and we live longer. So, as human beings, we live till average age, 70 or 80 years old? Probably, your average person. 60 to 80 years old, maybe a bit older. And that will probably only get more so. We're going to have a huge crisis for that probably in the future, but we already have one now, really. But human beings used to live much more dramatic, short existences, right? I'm 38 now. If I was alive 100 years ago, 200 years ago, would have definitely had a shorter lifespan on average. Probably, if I was born in the 1920s, probably would have died of the Spanish flu, potentially. We could have knocked out millions. Mostly men about my age, 30s, 20s to 30s. So millions of them died, not to mention the first two world wars. Maybe in some respects as well, there is a very specific challenge that men have, which is obviously being chatted about a lot in culture, of how we have. I do think there is some truth to the idea that as men, we have testosterone, right? Which can manifest itself in aggression, and that is something that we deal with in one way or the other. Like, you either feed that demon and take it out on other people, becoming violent, or whatever, that idea of a pale criminal or whatever that Nietzsche talks about, or you try and create something and sublimate that nature. But it's all inside of all of us. Like, we've all got good and evil potential inside of us. And I'm not going to say anything as cliched as whichever wolf you feed is the one that ultimately you become, but there is something to that cliche, I suppose. Now, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think, generally speaking, I think having an open mind, combining intelligence with empathy is always an important wisdom to cultivate. I think that's where wisdom really roots from, if he roots from anywhere. So with all the culture wars that are going on now, you have to keep an open mind with a lot of it. Like I said, I've been going, just because it's so around the whole trans thing, I've been thinking about it recently, just because, again, you can't escape it. Even if you want to escape it, you go onto any online platform, it's there, and people are getting really entrenched about it, and you can understand why, I suppose. Then it's also the race is becoming such a charged issue in the culture war again, and again, that's understandable why. And that affects many more people actually, and that's a bit of a ramble. I'm going off point of it now, but I just thought I'd reel off some thoughts. Some of it, I think, some of the because woke is such a huge talking point at the minute in culture and media, and I think some of it is over the top, but then I do think there are genuine concerns there which probably do need to be addressed. The whole thing of speakers getting cancelled, and you have to be able to listen to alternative viewpoints. I think you have to be willing to do that to really be able to, as I say, if someone can convince you for the strength of their argument, then okay, maybe they're just good at rhetoric. Maybe then that doesn't imply that they're actually being truthful or there's any validity to what they're saying, but I don't know. This has been a bit of a ramble. I'll try and wrap it up soon. I will be doing a video on Mainlander's philosophy of redemption soon. Like I said, I've been reading through the analytics and physics chapters. I'm about to go on to the next chapter of that book, so we'll do a full review of it. I hope there's something interesting in that, because I'm not going to make it much longer because I've already spoken for about half an hour. Obviously, like I said, quite jumbled. I just want to get back into the swing of doing a few video journals when I feel like it. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there, Chris. This channel is just basically what I post up, won't play on games, and then if I feel like breaching philosophical subjects, I just do vlogs on here about it. Sometimes video essays. That's it, really. What do you think? I mean, has anything I said made any sense, or is it interesting, or I don't know if I've really touched on anything that deep there, or just a bunch of thoughts, really.